Welcome to another episode of Negotiate Your Best Life. I'm really so excited to bring you Dr. Frank Anderson because this episode is going to help heal you, heal your life, heal yourself. So often I have said that your trauma does your talking, does your picking, runs your life. And if that is what's happening, you don't even realize it. And here is somebody who's going to help stop that for you so that your true self can start doing the talking and running your life. Dr. Frank Anderson he's a Harvard trained. He's really been from the whole clinical side of things. And then he decided to really do a pivot and a shift in the last several years of his life and really focus on internal family systems and help people heal and transcend trauma. And he's going to be talking about that and his last several books. And I really cannot wait to have him talk. You're going to want to listen to this episode probably more than once, probably a few times, because of how much he's going to be bringing to you. So thank you for joining me and for bringing your light to the world.
Oh, beautiful, Rebecca. Thank you so much for having me. I already feel a synergy and an alignment between us. So I love that. And I really do have a calling and a purpose. It really is a purpose to bring trauma healing to the world. And I am going to do that in any and all the ways that I can. So I'm grateful to be here and to be able to share some of my wisdom, both clinically and also personally with the world. And you're right, I am moving out of that ivory tower Harvard world into the general public because I feel like this message has to get out there. And I want to be one of the people that brings the message of healing to the average person who doesn't maybe have access in the same way.
I feel that too. I feel like I'm just the conduit.
Yes,
And
right? Yeah.
yeah, and it kind of happened for me that way as well. I started talking on YouTube during COVID about negotiation in general, and then I did one video on how to negotiate with a narcissist, and that's the one that went viral. And I was like, I don't want to be the narcissist queen.
I love that. I love that. I don't want to be the narcissist queen. Well, hey, you know what? Let me dive into that right away because I feel like, how there's like words of the year? Like
Yeah.
ghosting was a word of the year a couple years ago. Like narcissism is like the now thing, right? There's
Yeah.
so many people talking about narcissism, and there's obvious reasons in culture and society why that has become such a big deal. There's in Hollywood, there's this whole takedown from the Me Too movement of all these narcissistic, powerful men, right? There's so much going on in that realm, which I think is super important. Like there's a bunch of people who are the recipients of narcissists, and they need to be empowered to be able to speak up and get out of something that's abusive and harmful. The thing that I want to tweak, I'm going to say this because I don't like the pathologizing and the bad guy nature that some people give to this group. Narcissists are evil. They can never heal. Let's throw them away, right? There is that othering that happens, polarizing these worlds. And the thing that I hold as a trauma survivor who's been working in this field since 1992, like a long time, is that there's a way that we as culture and society will label toxic men with a trauma history as a narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
And we label obnoxious, abusive, and I'm putting that in quotes, highly emotional women who have trauma histories as borderline. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my goodness, if you're a woman with a trauma history, you get labeled a crazy borderline personality disorder. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're a man with a trauma history, you get labeled as a narcissist. So even though these terms are important, I don't want us to stay in the polarity. It's like, hey, we might have more in common than we think, like is the root of childhood trauma, even though we have different adaptations and reactions to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Depending on who you are. So that's the position that I hold. I'm not saying, and I really feel strongly about that. I don't want to other anyone. We're too polarized.
Boy,
This
I
is my whole.
100% agree with that. I mean, instead of a me and against you world, it's a me and
Yes,
you world. It's the
yes,
and, right?
yes,
And you talk about
100%.
that in your
Yes,
book too,
yes.
right? Because I read your whole book.
Mm,
But I I also think that what happened with me
yeah,
was, I think this whole thing took off because I had dealt with a narcissistic business
yeah,
partner. I have a definite
yeah,
narcissist in my family as well.
yeah,
And I started also researching narcissism because I had a big family law practice. I was representing high net worth individuals, and everybody started saying that their partner was a narcissist.
yes,
And
yes,
so I needed to beat them in the courtroom and start figuring out what was going on here. But so I kind of took it from a different approach
yeah,
as well. But I think that it also became a calling for me because I started to get floods and floods and floods of
yes,
emails where people were
yes,
like, "You saved my life.
yes.
I didn't commit suicide because of you. You saved my children's lives. I now got custody." And
Yes,
I thought, okay, this is a God thing. This is
yeah,
now,
right.
I have to do this.
Beautiful. You know what
Yeah.
I want to say about it? And you're absolutely right, because there's such a segment of the population. One of the complexities about this kind of way I describe men and women with trauma histories, like whether you're a narcissist or you're, a borderline, whatever those, terms are. The problem is, and I was certainly the recipient of a narcissist. My father was very much narcissistic. And
Mm,
the problem in it is that men tend to have the power in culture and society, and the recipients of narcissists tend to be people who aren't empowered and don't have the space to be
right.
strong enough to stand up, right?
So,
That's the thing that I really remembered for myself is, I had 7 years of no contact with my parents when I became an adult, right? And
right.
I tried to speak up like, hey, this happened to me. Hey, this is real. And both my mom and dad, for very different reasons, my mom needed to stay connected to my father at all costs, and my dad needed to maintain power and control, could not hear or have space for me and my view and my perspective. And I wasn't strong enough to withstand it. So that's the thing that's so challenging for people who are the recipient of narcissists, is you have to have a certain amount of strength to stand up and show up. And it's harder when you're the one down in a power differential relationship, right? That's
Right.
the struggle. And until you get strong enough to be able to speak up or stand up, and people like you, and there's others out there that are helping to empower the disempowered to
Hmm.
get of things, and to be strong enough to stand up to that power differential.
Right. I think that, certainly as a child, you don't have a choice. I mean, as a
No.
child, that's one thing. But as an adult,
Yeah.
the flip side of they're bad, and all of that is, you keep yourself in this victim mentality.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
what I teach people through my SLAY method is, because SLAY is an acronym.
Yeah.
So it's strategy, leverage, anticipate, and the why is you have the power and your mindset. And the flip side of that is taking responsibility for where you can say, I have a choice.
Yes. Yeah.
And where did I say I have a choice in this? I can take responsibility here.
Huge. It's such a big deal. Like this is one of the things that was a surprise to me um in my so it's so delicate. The line that you're talking about is so delicate around I have a choice, what's my responsibility versus blaming the victim, right? That's such a fine line because we want to be very careful. And I don't hear you saying that at all,
No.
but is a what did I contribute? What is my role? What is my choice? Which is
Mhm.
independent of what the other person does or says. Like it's such an important thing to kind of tease out and differentiate because we have a role in certain ways doesn't mean we deserve
Mm-mm.
here that was given to us at all. That's not what
Oh,
I'm saying at all. But
no. And it doesn't mean that that other person wasn't a bad person
yes,
because,
yeah,
you
it
know, 100% they need to take, that other person was probably a bad person.
yeah.